Welcome to Paris Good Food and Wine. I'm Paige Donner, the host and producer. This food and wine show is being brought to you directly from Paris, France. Here, we give you a taste of this delicious world with all its colorful and diverse personalities that make up the Paris culinary landscape. So, sit back and relax and enjoy Paris Good Food and Wine. Ah, yes. It's March once again, and that, of course, means that spring is just around the corner. For this episode of Paris Good Food and Wine, I'm letting you in on a couple of my secrets. These are French secrets to keeping in good health and good spirits during the long winter months, namely oysters and tea. The simple prescription is to consume both in generous amounts.
The oysters, and you have many vitamin and you have iron, vitamin A, B, C, everything inside, and they say very often that it's the best food for someone who's doing the marathon.
First up is my interview with Madame Gillardeau, otherwise known as the Oyster Queen. This charming Belgian married into the third-generation Gillardeau oyster farming family from France's Atlantic coast several decades ago, and has shared in the cultivation of this valuable resource ever since. Ladies, take note, because oysters seem to be a secret ingredient to staying young-looking and radiant. Next up, we hear from Olivier Scala, whose father bought a tea company in the 70s called Tease. Mr. Scala has steered his family tea company toward growth and expansion his whole adult life, and now he even has his own son working with him. Tea consumption in France is markedly on the rise, with 4 out of 5 French people saying that they regularly drink tea. This interview takes place at the delightful Georges Canon Tea House in the very fashionable Saint-Germain-des-Prés district on Paris's left bank.
Tea, because tea is a pleasure, and this pleasure has to be shared, and we want that everybody who comes here is like in his house and enjoy.
So sit back and relax and get ready for another episode of Paris Good Food and Wine. You're listening to Paris Good Food and Wine with me, your host, Paige Donner. I have this charming woman sitting across from me, Veronica Gillardeau. And anybody who knows their oysters knows the name Gillardeau, because it's a very famous name for oysters here in France, and it's because they are so excellent. But let's start from square one and ask you, how did you first get involved in cultivating oysters?
Yes, so I met my husband, and he was really he was the farmer who was making oysters, and it was a family company. So my father-in-law, he wanted to stop his business, and I was thinking with my husband it was a little bit like exotique. I say it in France because French I don't know how do you say this in English, but it was really nice to take this family company and to make something new or something different or something. And cultivating oysters is really interesting for me. It's very nice because you're always in the sea, always in the nature, and it's a very nice job. And it was a small company, and there are many things to do in such a company. So it was for us a pleasure to take this company, to start with it, so 23 years ago, and now we're very happy with this company, so it was a nice job to do.
Well, and obviously, I mean, you've grown it to the point where, seriously, Gillardeau, when you see some of your oysters on a menu, you know that you're in store for something excellent. But like, don't take my word, like listeners, don't take my word for it. But you have to try them yourself. But what makes your oysters just so outstanding?
I think already the name Gillardeau is a very nice name. And it was really nice because my husband, when we took this company, said, Gillardeau, I don't like this name. And I always think that the name Gillardeau is a very nice name. And after that, we are really very present to have a very good quality. So the quality in our company is oyster is very strong, very long when you have them in the mouth. We need really a very nice taste, very long time after you eat it. And we need a shell very hard. That's really important for us as a quality. Gillardeau is for us interesting. And then after that we have many parts of production, so many different production countries and cities and everything. Cities no, but sites, so we say sites, excuse me. And it's really interesting because in one box you really travel because you have many countries and destinations and everything. And when we taste these oysters and when you have this long taste in the mouth, I think it's really that's really the point of Gillardeau for me. That's really important because the other oyster farmers who are very good also, they have only one production. So we have many production, and to change everything and to put everything together, it's making a really nice product, very exceptional. I think so. We travel in a box.
From now on, I'll pronounce your name the French way, Gillardeau. I think I was saying it in an American accent. I think I said Gillardeau, so excuse me.
That's very good, Gillardeau, with an American accent. It's nice.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit? I guess so. You have different sites where you cultivate on the Atlantic coast. Always on the Atlantic coast. Can you talk a little bit about the environment in which you cultivate oysters? I mean, what does an oyster bay look like? I mean, is it always foggy or?
So the oyster bay is normally really a place where you don't have many people who live. So it's really we are very alone, but it's important because you don't have the pollution of humans. You don't have pollution. No, you don't have pollution. You have always. Sometimes you have pollution, but not in the bay where we are. So we try always to be in a bay where we are very quiet, without any people. What's very funny is that we have really problems to find some people to go to work there because there's really nobody. There's nothing to see, and nothing at all. So it's really for the lovers of the sea. They like sea and nature. They are really perfect on this place. And then we have like tables in the water. So they are tables 40 centimeters high. We put the bags on it, and the bags are growing up. So the oysters are growing up for 3 to 5 years. After 3 to 5 years, they're really adult. They come back to France when they're in other countries or other sites, and then they come back. So they're putting on tables. We have to turn the tables when the high tide and the low tide. That's the only work we do on the oysters for 3 to 5 until 5 years. But the most important is really a park without any pollution around or any human houses or camping and everything. We don't have this. That's really important for us.
I wonder if maybe that's one of the points that make your oysters so perfect is because they're so pure. Maybe.
Yes, that's what we try because it's really difficult. An oyster is really. She can die if she's filtering something or eating something who's not very good. It's not very eating. It's like a filter oyster. So everything was in the water. She's eating it and filtering it. I don't know how do you say this in English. Yes, okay, she's filtering it. So it's really important that it's really a place where we don't have any pollution. We always have pollution. It's not nice to say, but the water or today is. Maybe there's more pollution, but the human pollution, they don't stand it. Pollution, they don't like it. So it's really important that we preserve this. Otherwise, we have oysters who can die or something. So that's important for us.
Now, I remember when I first met you, and it was at one of Guy Savoy's restaurants, you explained to the group of us like how oysters are not necessarily ranked, but like the number of their size, like oysters a number 2, a number 3, and I always still get it mixed up. Can you just do a little overview?
It's very interesting because the oysters that we have, the oysters, so the zero, I would say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, until 6. The 6 is the smallest one, and the 0 is the biggest one. And then you have flat oysters, and it's not the same. So flat oysters, when it's 00, is the smallest one. No, it's the biggest one. Excuse me, even me, I don't know anymore. So it's not it's in the other way. It's very strange, but I think it will come. And the number 3 is really the middle mate. So that's always the same, a middle size. Number 3.
It seems like number 3 is one of the more common in the restaurants.
Yes. In France, yes, that's what we sell the most. Number 3, number 2, and number 4 in France. Yes.
And oysters are so popular here in France. I mean, it's really part of the staple of many traditions, like New Year's Eve, and then also we're in the oyster season still. And I know, like here in Paris, some of the, since I've met you, I now really look, when I see your name on a menu, your oyster's name on a menu, I go, oh, okay. And I've seen it, I think I mentioned to you, I saw it recently at Le Clarence, which just got 2 Michelin stars. And I mean, I've seen it at so many. Do you want to maybe name a couple of the places in Paris where we can find?
We have many places where we are, but not always, because sometimes it's also seasonal. So they change always their cards, so it's not always the same customers I have. But I'm very happy because a lot of customers, they trust us because it's already since a long time, so since more than 20 years. And before it was my father-in-law and the grandfather and everything, so it's already for more than 100 years that we are producing oysters. And I'm always happy to see my name, even it's my name, but on the cards, I'm always very, very happy. And I understand it's nice. And the chefs, normally, they like our products because we have a regular product. Because we have many parks, different, but we're always trying to have the same quality all year long. And that's the most difficult to do with a natural product. And we arrive, not always, but we try to do it by the best way.
I see. So that's why someone like a Chef Guy Savoy, triple étoile, why he can kind of rely on you.
Yes, I think, yes, they trust us because they know normally the quality is always the same and always very good. Yes.
Now, I know you've got some export businesses around the world. You export. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. So we have export around the world because the chefs of France, they travel a lot today. So they go to China, they go to Japan, they go everywhere to Australia and everything. So they took with them very often our product. So that's really nice. And that's why we can see our products anywhere, in many countries. No, not in USA, but we can see them in many countries. What for us the pleasure is, it's not to do export and to have many oysters who are sailed in many countries, but it's to be in a country that we don't know, for example. So what we like is that our customers, they send us pictures and say, yes, you see, I was in, I don't know where, I saw your oysters, and that's really nice. That's really fun. That's a fun thing in our company.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I think there's something about exporting to the U.S., like something about exporting oysters.
Normally, the problem is that there's no authorization, I think, between France and United States for the French oysters to go to the United States. But I tasted already the oysters in the United States, and I think they're very good. So I'm very happy when I go to the United States. I ate always oysters from USA. So I like every oyster, so it's not a problem.
That's funny because I often say to people here that I was never a fan of oysters until I started eating oysters in France, because there's something about the oysters here in France. And then now I've found the best oysters, which are yours. So but that's nice of you to say good things about the U.S. Well, is there? Let's see. Oh, there was one other thing. You also told me how healthy oysters are. Can you just give a little recap?
So for me, oysters are very healthy because we made our controls and everything on the oysters, and you have many vitamin and you have iron, vitamin A, B, C, everything inside, and they say very often that it's the best food for someone who's doing the marathon. So I think it also because it's very good and you feel very light when you're eating it. You don't have to eat the bread and the butter with and the wine. Then it's better maybe, but it's a very nice product because you feel light. And I think it's a very good product to eat, yes. And also what we saw when we are doing analysis on our oysters, it's really a very good product. Yes, it's very good for the health.
And if you're any indication, it makes a woman stay young, very young looking.
I hope so. I hope so. I don't know if it's the oysters, but I hope so. Yes, I stay young with my oysters. Yes, I would like, but I'm not sure about this.
Next thing we know, in France, there'll be like a spa therapy on the Atlantic coast with only oysters as a regime for 10 days or something. Well, I want to thank you so much, Veronique, for your time today. Thank you so much for talking to us about your oysters.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you very much to think about me and continue to eat oysters of Gillardeau, of course. Bye-bye.
This episode of Paris Good Food and Wine has been brought to you by Paris Food and Wine. You can find us at parisfoodandwine.net. Listen to the Paris Good Food and Wine podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio, as well as on SoundCloud. You can find us on Facebook at Paris Food and Wine. Comments, questions, and suggestions are always welcome. On Twitter, we're at Paris Food Wine. Next up is Olivier Scala, who speaks to us about his family tea company, Tease Canon. I'm Paige Donner. You're listening to Paris, Good Food and Wine. I'm sitting here at this delightful tea salon in the 6th arrondissement on Rue Notre-Dame-des-Champs with Mr. Scala, who's the heir and, you will tell us all about Tease Georges Canon because it has such an illustrious history. So first, tell us your full name and then take it away.
So, I am Olivier Scala. I am a managing director of Georges Canon Company. Georges Canon Company is a tea importers company who was created in 1898 and by English people who was married with a French woman. And he created this company about 120 years ago. And my father bought this company in 1969. And my father was working in other family tea company, but he left the family tea company to buy Georges Canon and work by himself without the family in this new company. And I joined the company in 1978, almost 40 years ago. My father teach me about the tea testing, the technique of purchase of tea. And my son Augustin joined the company in 2006, and I teach him about the technique of tea testing, tea buying, and so on.
So the company, when your father bought the company, it was already an established. Was it a big importer of tea, or were you already packaging and selling tea under your? Was the brand Tease Georges Canon? Was it already packaging and selling tea under its own name, or is that something that your father and you developed?
When my father bought the company, this company was a very, very small company, most probably the smallest in France. He had left a leader in France, Tease de l'éléphant, and he joined the smallest company. And this company was and is still specialized in loose teas and not the George Cannon brand is existing, of course, but the most goal of the company is to import loose teas and to sell loose teas, or to make packed tea for labeling.
Well, that's fascinating. And when you come here to this delightful boutique, I mean, this is a real haven for tea lovers here in the 6th arrondissement. You see that you have specialized over the years in this loose tea, because you have what I think something like 1,000 different tea blends available here.
Yes, it's true. When my father started in 1969, I feel that we had maybe 10 or 12 references of tea, and not any perfume tea, only classic teas, only pure origin teas. And then we are improve of course the range of our teas, and I suppose I have not calculated, but I suppose that we have between 800 or 1,000 kinds of teas, classic pure origin teas and perfume teas.
One of the funnest things I've done since I visited your boutique, as I've visited a few times now, is one of the, because it's a shop and it's also a tea salon, so you can have lunch here and you can also buy teas. And one of your boutique tenders here, she had me do a tea smelling, it was like smelling perfume, but it was teas. And that, I felt like that was sort of sensitizing my nose in terms of the fine smells. But now you're an expert, and you've also probably trained your son in this. How do you distinguish, when you're out buying teas, when you're traveling the globe, how do you source the best quality teas?
Our sourcing is... there are different sources. When I arrived to George Cannon, my father had already... my father had, of course, an address book. And we have improved this address book because we hear sometimes from good teas in this country, from this garden, and we are very curious, and we want to know who produces this tea and who is the people, and it's very important for us to have the direct contact, to know how people work, and to taste their teas. And when we travel, when I travel with my son Augustine, we of course go and visit our usual suppliers, but we also want to discover some new potential suppliers.
What are some of the favorite regions that you enjoy traveling to when you're doing your tea buying?
It's extremely difficult to answer. It's as difficult as to say what is my preferred tea, because any country is very interesting to visit. Any people are very interesting to contact, to be with. But I like very much. I am always exciting to go to know that I will visit, for instance, Darjeeling in India, or some provinces in China, or Japan, or Nepal. It's very, but also to discover. Last year or 2 years ago, I went for my first visit to Rwanda in Africa, and it was a beautiful country with excellent teas and lovely people. So it's to discover is the main of the main importance.
When I first became familiar with your tea, especially here in Paris, I started noticing that there are some very high-end places, like 5-star hotels and top like some of the most famous patissiers here, who serve your tea. Sometimes it's under your own label, and sometimes it's under their own label. Can you talk to us a little bit about that part of your business?
First, I can say that our brand name Georgetown is not very improved. We are starting the development and the diffusion of our brand. You have to know that we have created this brand Georgetown maybe 7 8 years ago, and it's very a young brand name inside of our old very old tea company. First, our brand name Georgetown is a very new brand name. We had created it maybe in 2007 about, and it's a very new brand inside of the very old company. And we are improving the diffusion of this brand, but step by step, it's very slow. And for us, it was and it is still easier to make labeling. And for instance, we make the tea for, I can say, for La Durée Pâtisserie, for Pierre Hermé, for Amorino, for the ice creams, and so on. And we have a lot of labeling, and we also supply loose teas for prestigious location like Bristol Hotel, like people like Michalak, and so on.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people, even if they don't recognize straight away your brand, Thé Georges Canon, they'll know once they hear these names like La Durée, they'll know, well, I've had that tea. Yeah.
Yes, nobody knows. It's almost a secret. It's possible to let know that, but nobody knows exactly who supplies. Yes, for us La Durée, for other companies Le Nôtre or Fauchon, but generally tea importers supply prestigious brand names.
You know, the more I learn about tea, and I don't know much, and some of what I've learned now so far is speaking with you and your communications team, but it seems to me that there's a bit of a parallel between vineyards and sourcing good grapes and tea. Can you speak to that a little bit?
It's very similar because we are depending of the climate conditions of the earth, the soil, the nature of the soil. Such kind of soil will give such kind of taste. Such kind of tea trees will give, or variety or cultivar will give different tasting. It's exactly like wine with the grapes, with the soil, with the elevation, and so on. The both products are very, very similar, are cousins.
Yeah, it's fascinating for me to keep on discovering that, keep on discovering the similarities. Now, Mr. Scala, just for the final question, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about this tea salon here, because it's a boutique, it's a tea salon, and it's also a center for well-being, I believe you have downstairs as well.
We had been opening this tea house 2009, and we wanted to open exactly a tea house. And a tea house, for instance, in China, there are many activities. You have a counter of tea, you have accessories to buy, or that we sell. We have also a tea shop, a tea room, where you can have lunch, and we prepare recipes with tea. Tea is present everywhere in our tea house. You can, like now, taste one cup of tea with good patisserie. And downstairs we have open Japanese tea house with some shanoyu, ceremony of tea, which are made by a tea master each Saturday. And we have also a cabin of massages and with a woman who makes excellent shiatsu massages.
You know, that's excellent. I know it's like everything is tea here. One time I enjoyed, not too long ago, I enjoyed some lentil soup here that was made with a base of tea. And since then I tried it at home, and it's now my favorite way to make lentil soup. So it's with a base of tea rather than bouillon, and it's wonderful. I very much enjoy that.
Thank you very much. We try to include tea everywhere in the recipes, in the soups, and we like you enjoy that.
Yeah,
We hope that you enjoy that.
anyone who comes and visits your shop will enjoy it. Is there any final thing that you'd like to, suggest that somebody come in here for?
If somebody comes, and I hope that he will have a very nice welcome, and we can give him any information about tea, because tea is a pleasure, and this pleasure has to be shared, and we want that everybody who comes here is like in his house and enjoy.
And I know you have a website too, so I will mark that. I will note that when the interview, when we post this. Thank you very much, Monsieur Scala.
Welcome. Thanks to you.
This episode of Paris Good Food and Wine has been brought to you by Paris Food and Wine. You can find us at parisfoodandwine.net. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Paris Good Food and Wine. A big thank you to all who helped make this show possible, and especially a grand merci beaucoup from me, your host and producer, Paige Donner. You can find this and past episodes of Paris Good Food and Wine on iTunes. And remember to follow us on Twitter at Paris Food Wine and like us on Facebook at Paris Food and Wine.